Wix Studio, one end-to-end web creation platform for your agency to deliver exceptional work with absolute efficiency.
The #1 long-form writer that helps SEOs outrank competition at the click of a button using real-time research and NLP. Start ranking content today with contentatScale.ai.
Hello, it's me, the most desperate for friends man in SEO. My name's Chris. As we say, I'm a technical SEO at Lumar, and today we're going to talk about how to fight 100 horse-sized ducks, and in about 3 minutes it will make sense, and then what will happen is the analogy will kind of fall apart as we go further through the presentation. So first things first, you may or may not be aware, Lumar used to be known as DeepCrawl. We rebranded about a year ago or so. Still the same core product, but we're kind of moving into a more broader sort of web intelligence sort of space moving forward. Just thought I'd mention that. Next up, one of these slides so that you all know you can trust me. My name's Chris. I work at Lumar, and my day-to-day is really big problems, really small problems, and really weird problems. And it's this last one that I really love, right? If all your navigation links break every other Wednesday, come and speak to me afterwards. I'll love to try and work out why that is. It's my favorite thing on earth to do. So, question. If, like me, you are a rapidly decaying millennial and you were a student in the early 2000s, in between episodes of The Mighty Boosh, you might have heard this question go around. Would you rather fight 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses? The answer to me has always been very obvious, because a duck is a razor-mouthed war machine, and this is a small horse. There's no competition, right? Clearly, the answer is 100 duck-sized horses. But what if there were 100 ducks, and they were all horse-sized, and the ducks were websites? Look, what I'm trying to say is, what if you had a lot of big websites that you had to work on, and you had to try and understand what they were, and they were all dangerous in some way, shape, or form to you, right? And that's what we're going to try and discuss today. First thing to understand, as soon as you inherit this account, you start your new job or whatever, and somebody says, yeah, we've got 150 websites, you need to start trying to understand, why have you got multiple sites, right? Is it because you're an international business and you've got a .com, a .co.uk, a .de, a .ie, etc., 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 etc.? Is it because you've got multiple products and brands? So maybe you've got a B2B arm, a B2C arm, or you've got separate sites for separate products, etc., etc. This one particularly goes in a million different ways. I've seen it, sometimes a CMO just goes, I think this one should have its own website. Why? I just think it should. That comes under there. Or finally, expansion. We've worked with clients who basically have expanded by just buying their competitors, right? And then what that means is in 3 years, they own the entirety of the front page of the SERPs, but now they've got 20 websites with different stacks, different teams that manage different things. Nobody knows what anything does, 20 different sets of legacy problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And these are the problems, as I say, that you start to have with this stuff, right? So if you have an international site or international sites, you immediately start running into hreflang problems, right? This isn't an hreflang talk because there's not enough time before the sun dies to talk about hreflang. Patrick Stotts did a good talk on it yesterday, I think it was. So check the video version of that when that comes out. But also on top of that, you've got geo-targeting problems, geo-blocking problems. I work on a lot of US clients, so I spend a lot of time VPN'd into things. And then once you're VPN'd into something, and with the user agent switcher on as well, you very quickly start to lose track where or who in the world you claim that you are. And you can have a little identity crisis in your back bedroom. Products and brands, you really start to struggle potentially, depending again how this works on cannibalization. Again, how do you differentiate between your B2B and your B2C, especially if they've got very similar names or you're known very similarly. And again, coming back to intent, we were talking about earlier, again, that's a real problem. You don't want to push B2C customers into your B2B site and vice versa. And then again, like I said, with expansion, different tech, different out-of-house teams, legacy issues. Some of your developers might now be in a totally different business, or work for an agency, be in a different country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You start to really run into these problems. So how do we get from, oh shit, that's a lot of websites, to something approaching being able to look after them, right? Well, the first thing to do is to try and get to know your stacks. At one point, that said, get to know your quacks, which I thought was brilliant, but it was removed by marketing. So imagine you start a new business and you say to somebody, right, okay, well, how's everything set up? And they go, okay, well, we've got 3 websites, and they've each got their own separate product database, but all the resources, they all live on one unified CDN. Dead easy. Oh, 2 of the sites operate in the EU, so we have to have OneTrust on them. And then the other site, we have a load of video content on that, so there's Brightcove on that one. 2 of them are WordPress, but like a weird WordPress that we've kind of broken. And then there's the other one's Shopify. I think it's Shopify. And we have just bought another site, and that uses Sanity, and it's got its own CDN. But don't worry, everything's on AWS, apart from this other site over here that's on Azure, right? And you start going, oh, so I just work on this. Yeah, this is my day-to-day. Yeah, pretty much. That's what you've got to work on, right? So how do we take... And this is simplified, right? How do you take this and start to turn that into something useful? And the answer is, well, you can do potentially 2 things. Thing number 1 you can do is, as I've just acted out for you here, you can speak to your friendly developer within the business, right? Hopefully, normally there's one, and they can take you through the stack, or maybe some sort of architecture person within the business, and just get them to take you through exactly how the site works, or how the sites work, and where everything's put together. If you don't have that, another thing you can do is use an amazing tool called Wappalizer. It's a Chrome plugin, and essentially what you do, you load up a page, hit the Chrome plugin, and it will basically have a look at the HTML and work out what tools are being used in the background based on JavaScript libraries that are loaded and things like that. It's sometimes a little bit too detailed, and sometimes it doesn't quite categorize things correctly, but it's 90% accurate, I would say, and it's really useful for getting a handle on what's going on. And then what you can do is you can hit this export button here, and what that'll do then, that generates a CSV. You can get them for all the sites that you work on. And then what it means you can create something like this, which is like a filterable database then of basically all the sites that you work on and the technology that's on them. So when you're sat there and you get a Slack message saying, hey, AWS has gone down, or Cloudflare, like we had a Cloudflare outage a year ago, a couple of years ago, something like that, like half the web went down. As soon as you hear about that, you can then filter and say, right, have we got any sites that use Cloudflare? Is this going to be a problem for us, right? Having this built out is a really, really useful thing to be able to just have an awareness of what's actually running on your estate. Speaking of your estate, once you then know what everything is built on, the next thing to do is start understanding, right, well, which of these sites am I ever going to actually be able to get stuff done on, right? So, this is a dead simple X versus Y, commercial priority versus difficulty to work on. What do I mean by each? Commercial priority is going to be, again, a little bit different for each of your businesses, but broadly speaking, what commercial priority means is money, right? It's, it might be the sites that are your biggest, or your best performers, or it might be the one that you're really trying to push at the moment, or again, it might just be that site that the CMO really likes that we talked about before. But I say, whatever commercial priority means for you, you need to understand this one's right down the bottom. It's our lowest traffic driver, our lowest revenue provider, drives the least leads or whatever, all the way up to this one is absolutely mission critical. And then difficulty to work on. Again, this is really super nebulous, and it's always going to be tricky to know. The best scale I can give you for this one is ask your developer friend who we met before to do work on that site, and just check how glazed the look on their face goes when you ask them that they need to get into the database for it. And that broadly will give you a rough idea of how difficult that site is to work on. But again, obviously, if you have sites where you have external teams or things like that that are always a little bit tricky to work on, or you have a white label, for instance, they're always harder to work on because why would your white label provider choose to do it? So yeah, that's what you need to do, get that information together. Obviously, we'd like to think that everything is over here, right? But we know for a fact that actually what happens is, at best, it kind of goes like this. And realistically, what actually happens is everything is over here, right? Everything's difficult to work on, no matter how commercially important they are. Once you've got all this information, you can use it to start informing your crawling strategy. Obviously, for this, you're going to need a crawler. You've got 25, 30 million URLs per site in some instances. You're going to need a crawler. I think you should use Lumar, but I am biased. So the first thing you need to do is build a crawl strategy. And these can be actually fairly simple, right? This first step of it. This is a version that we've used for a client with multiple sites before now. And what you want to start doing is breaking it down to basically tiering sites. So again, when we did our commercial priority before, you say, right, this very top band, that's commercial, that's tier 1. tier 2, and then tier 3. Your tier 1 sites, you're going to crawl them more often. You're going to crawl more of them as well. And yeah, and so you're going to be crawling those sites more often. It's very, very tempting to want to crawl everything. We quite often hear from clients, I want everything crawled. I want to know about every single URL. Nobody on earth actually wants to know about every single URL on their website, right? Because 95% of them a lot of times are useless to everybody, right? So, and especially, again, those sites that are right down here, that are your low priority ones or don't get worked on as often, you don't need to crawl them as often because less is done to them. Obviously, stuff can still go wrong. You should still be crawling them, but that stuff down there, it should be lower priority than your tier 1 sites. And the thing that you can do, if you have massive, massive sites, like in the tens of millions, again, we know that even if you're crawling at 30 URLs a second, 40 URLs a second, a 20 million URL site is going to take the best part of a week to get crawled, right? So what you can do a few different things. You can basically just set a web crawl, i.e. give your crawler the root URL of your site and say, hey, just crawl 50,000 URLs. Just go and find the top 50,000 URLs, the top 100,000 URLs. That, again, we're good SEOs, right? We're linking to our important pages. That should cover everything off. And it should also help you understand, well, hey, we think this page is really important, but we crawled 100,000 URLs and we never found this page. Why is that? Maybe we need to look at moving that page up. Or another thing you can do is use GSC or analytics as a source for your crawls and just say, hey, crawl the top 50,000 pages out of GSC. Because, again, they're pages that we know are ranking. They're pages that are getting impressions. These are pages that are important to us. Oh, yeah, and the last thing, if you have a site with multiple CMSs, so you've maybe got a Shopify site with a WordPress blog stuck on the side of it or any permutation of that, use segments. Most tools now will allow you to segment by various different things, but in this instance, you might create a segment that any URL has blog in, becomes a separate segment, which is all for blog content. And it just means that you can help, it just makes it easier to filter through that data. Again, we're going to have a lot of data doing this. So little tips like this will just help to remove a lot of the stuff that you don't need to worry about. So at this point now, we know why we've got loads of sites. We know what they're made out of. And we know, and we've actually got some data as well. And so at this point, we've got a lot of data. So how do we take 100 sites and actually start chunking them into groups that are manageable? We did this by using a tool called Monitor, which is one of our core products. And effectively what this allows us to do is take multiple different website crawls and then monitor them all together over a period of time. Obviously what this means you can do is you can start grouping them by those commonalities we talked about before, right? So you can take all your WordPress sites, monitor them together, so you then know if there's a WordPress issue, you can go and look at those sites. Again, if different hosting providers, again, you're going to have to use this information that you found earlier. But also what you can do with this is once these sites are grouped, within Monitor, we have these columns are customizable, so you can then start saying, oh, well, hey, sites that are built on this technology have this specific problem all the time. We need to sort that out. A site that I used to work on, somehow, like once a year, the content of a blog post would get into the footer links at the bottom of the homepage. No one knew why, no one knew how, but it would happen once every 12 months fairly regularly. We needed to monitor that. It wasn't something that I needed to go and check every single day, but it was something I needed to know about, right? So you can start to build this stuff in. Again, with Lumar, we have custom extractions as well. So you can build out anything that isn't covered off by your normal crawlers, 404s, 503s, canonical tags, etc. You can build those extractions to start getting that information as well. So at that point then, you then have a dashboard basically that allows you to flick through and say, you could also do this by region. So this screenshot here is for a client that we work with. I know that their French, Italian, and Spanish sites are clones of each other. Literally like a problem that occurs on France or Italy will also occur on Spain. I also know this because it abbreviates down to the lovely frites, which I think is fantastic. What I've done is I've talked and not pressed the button. But yeah, what you want to be able to achieve is the ability to, at a glance, tell what technology has caused the problems. Otherwise, you've got 100 separate data sources that are all going to look similar. But believe me, once you've looked at 25 of them, you're going to forget which sites have got those problems. What you need to be able to do is, rather than have 100 websites, 4, 5, 6 groups or whatever, that you can then start to go in and say, well, hey, yeah, all of these sites are spiking in the same way. This is a problem with this specific technology. And then the final thing to do is just to be smart, right? You've got to, by this point, you've got a lot of data and it's probably too much, right? And I'm also operating on the assumption at this point that you are a single SEO or an SEO that is in a team that is too small. I've worked with both of the big local newspaper providers in the UK. Both of their SEO teams are less than 3 people, right? And between them, they've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of websites to try and work on, and they're tiny, tiny teams, right? So you're busy, right? You've got migrations on, you've got the new season of Welcome to Wrexham started a couple of days ago, right? There's a lot going on in your life. I don't know if marketing will thank me for saying this, but we know, as an ex in-house, nobody wakes up in the morning and thinks, I tell you what, I'm going to go absolutely crazy in Lumar today. Can't wait to get to the back bedroom, turn the laptop on, and look at some technical SEO issues. No, what you want is to get in, deal with all your emails, deal with the new stuff that's come in, and just know in the background that the sites, especially those B and C tier sites, you don't need to be looking at them every day, but you do need to know that nothing's gone wrong overnight, right? That nothing's broken. You know, the new release that happened on Wednesday hasn't destroyed anything, right? So use your groups to check what's important and to compartmentalize, right? There's loads of talks here about detail. This isn't one. This is about scale, and this is about enormous, right? I find it so much easier to be able to work when I can compartmentalize things, where I can just forget about, I need to just focus on the big thing. It doesn't matter how big that problem is, you need to make it so that's the only problem you need to worry about. So cast out all the stuff that isn't causing problems, and by using these groups, you can help find those things. And then finally, like I was saying before, you busy people, set up alerts. So within Monitor, we have the ability to basically create alerts with thresholds. So if the number of 404 pages on this site goes above X number, which is like a percentage change on the week before, because we understand there's always going to be 404s somewhere, right? But again, what you want to know is if things have spiked, or alternatively, if all of a sudden something's dropped. Sometimes that's not a great sign either, right? So we need to know what these things are. So we create alerts to say we can pump these into Slack or into emails, and then this way again, like I was saying before, you can get on with your day-to-day, safe in the knowledge that if something does happen, an alert will pop up and it will tell you. So to sum up, work out why you've got multiple websites, get to know your stacks, get to know your quacks, marketing, prioritize your estate, build your crawl strategy. On recollection, looking at that one now, sounds like, that meme of just like how to draw an owl, draw 2 circles, draw the rest of the owl. That one kind of feels like that one now I look back at it, but there we go. Once you've got that crawl strategy done, once you understand how and when you're crawling your sites, start to monitor those sites and groups, and then finally be smart about how you interact with that data. I don't want you getting burned out, especially not if you take away from this and think, I'm going to do exactly what Chris Spann says, and then in 6 months' time, you have to change jobs. I don't want that. So be smart, be kind to yourself, and just make sure you've got the actual data that you need in order to work with. And finally, good luck and don't duck it up. That's my favorite one in the whole thing. Thanks very much. Sorry about all the ducks. There's a QR code here with a load of resources that goes on to what I'm talking about. That's everything from me. I'll be sat over there if you want to come and talk to me afterwards. Thank you.
Monthly reporting making you want to shove sharp things up your nose? Try Dragon Metrics, the all-in-one SEO software with mind-blowing reporting tools.